snarling fangs of a brave human dog, left an alien girl crying tears of shock. Two Elysian friends, Orin and Zephyr, were hanging out, but the mood was tense. At the Nebula Lounge, Orin's 4 hands shook. The 7-foot blue alien male was distraught. His daughter, Aria, had been attacked by cruel human boys while visiting Earth. Zephyr, a shorter green man, listened grimly as Orin recounted the terrifying event. She was just exploring a park in New York, minding her own business. Aria is so small and delicate, with those translucent wings. She didn't stand a chance against those teenage thugs. Orin's voice wavered. They shoved her down, trying to steal her communicator. She pleaded with them, tried to explain she meant no harm, but they just laughed and hurt her wing as she screamed. Zephyr put a hand on his friend's shoulder. "Is she okay? What happened?" Orin took a shaky breath. "She's safe now, but only because of an unexpected hero. A human man and his dog intervened before things got even worse. If not for them—" He shuddered at the dark possibility. Aria is traumatized, but alive. Those humans are barbaric. We can't let this stand. Zephyr nodded solemnly, antennae twitching. Humans were always causing problems. This unprovoked attack on a gentle Elysian girl could not go unanswered. There would be consequences for the violent Earthlings. The aliens would make sure of it. Orin continued his tale, taking a shaky breath to steady himself. This human man, Richard Morgan, I think his name was, saw the whole thing go down. He was out for a jog with his dog Max, a big German shepherd. Without even hesitating, he told Max to go after those thugs. Zephyr leaned forward, his eyes wide. The dog actually listened. Oh yeah, he was well trained all right. Max took off like a shot, teeth bared and barking up a storm. Those punks nearly pissed themselves when they saw him coming. They backed off real quick. Good. Serves them right. Zephyr crossed his arms, nodding in approval. Richard caught up and got between Aria and the boys. He really let them have it, threatening to call the Earth Police. I guess they finally realized how much trouble they were in, because they started apologizing like crazy before running off with their tails between their legs. At least they had some sense, but what about Aria? Was she okay? Orin sighed heavily. She was on the ground, shaking and crying. Her wing was damaged, but Richard, he was so gentle with her. He helped her up, checked her over, even called for a medic to make sure she got treated. That's surprisingly kind of him for a human. Zephyr's antennae twitched thoughtfully. There's more. While they waited for help, that dog Max just laid down next to her. Let her pet him and everything. It actually seemed to calm her down. Maybe they aren't all bad. A hint of grudging respect colored Zephyr's tone. I don't know what would have happened if Richard and Max hadn't been there. It's the only reason I haven't pushed for harsher sanctions against Earth. There's still some good ones, I suppose. The two friends sat in contemplative silence, processing the unexpected compassion shown by the human and his loyal dog. Orin shook his head, still in disbelief. That's not even the end of it, Zephyr. Richard actually went with Aria to the hospital. Can you believe that? A human taking time out of his day to make sure an alien girl was okay. So no, he stayed right by her side. The doctors were a bit thrown off at first, seeing an Elysian, but they adapted quickly, figuring out how to treat her injured wing. That's impressive. I wouldn't have expected humans to be so accommodating. Orin nodded, a small smile on his face. Richard was there the whole time, even contacted our embassy to let them know what happened. He went above and beyond, Zephyr. I can't express how grateful I am for his kindness. Zephyr leaned back, processing this new information. Do you think this is normal for humans, this level of compassion? Zephyr hummed thoughtfully. You might be right. This whole incident could be a valuable lesson for us. We can't paint an entire race with one brush. Exactly. Humans are diverse, just like us, capable of both good and bad. I think it's time we start looking at them as individuals rather than making blanket assumptions. Orin leaned forward, his eyes intense as he continued his account. But it didn't end there, Zephyr. While Aria was still recovering, Richard took it upon himself to dig deeper into the incident. Zephyr's antennae perked up with curiosity. What do you mean? What did he find? He discovered that those boys had a history of bullying and xenophobia. They'd been targeting anyone different from them, other cultures, other species. It was a pattern of intolerance. Despicable, Zephyr spat, his green skin flushing with anger, but not entirely surprising given what they did to Arya. Orin nodded grimly. Richard was appalled. He couldn't let it stand, so he took action, contacted their school and parents directly, laid out the severity of the situation, and demanded they take responsibility. The school knew they had to act fast, with the threat of bad press and legal trouble looming. They suspended the boys, put them in sensitivity training and community service. Zephyr's eyes widened. Impressive, and the parents... Defensive at first, but faced with the reality of their kids' actions, they had to confront the prejudice head-on, agreed to work with the school and authorities to address the root issues. Huh. Zephyr sat back, processing this new information. On Elysia, that would be a job for law enforcement, government officials, not an individual taking the reins like that. Orin's brow furrowed thoughtfully. It surprised me too, but the more I think about it, Richard's actions show a strong sense of personal responsibility, a commitment to justice, even for a stranger. You're right, Zephyr mused. He had no obligation to Arya or our people, but he stepped up anyway, went above and beyond. That says something about his character. It does, and it makes me wonder, could this human trait, this individualistic drive to do what's right, could it be a strength? A way to build a more just society? Zephyr leaned forward, his eyes wide with wonder. That's incredible, Orin. So Richard and Max became a lifeline for Arya during her recovery. Orin nodded, a smile playing on his lips. They did. Every day like clockwork they'd show up at the hospital. Richard always had a little gift for her. A book, a puzzle, something to keep her mind off the pain. And Arya opened up to him? Zephyr asked, his voice tinged with surprise. She did. At first she was hesitant, still shaken by the attack. But Richard, he has this way about him. He's easy to talk to, you know. Orin's eyes softened as he recalled the conversations he'd had with his daughter. He shared his own struggles with her, about raising his kids alone after their mother passed. It helped Arya see that everyone faces challenges, even humans. Zephyr's antennae twitched thoughtfully. That's a powerful message. We all have more in common than we realize. Orin chuckled. You should have seen Arya's face when Richard introduced her to his children over video call. They were so excited to meet a real alien, as they put it. I can only imagine, Zephyr grinned. Kids have a way of cutting through the barriers we adults put up. They peppered her with questions about Elysia, about her wings, her abilities. And Arya, she just blossomed under their curiosity and enthusiasm. It was like watching a flower unfurl. Zephyr sat back, marveling at the image. It sounds like those interactions had a profound effect on her. Orin nodded solemnly. They did. Arya started to see humans in a new light, not as a monolith, but as individuals with their own stories, their own struggles and triumphs. And what about Max? Zephyr asked, his curiosity piqued. How did Arya's feelings about him change? Orin couldn't help but laugh. Oh, that's a story in itself. When Arya first saw Max in the hospital room, she nearly jumped out of her skin. She'd never seen a dog before, let alone one as big as Max. Zephyr's eyes widened. I can't even imagine. What did she do? Over time, as Arya got more comfortable with Richard, she started to let her guard down around Max too. She'd watch him from her bed, fascinated by his every move. Orin's voice grew soft with memory. Then one day Richard had to step out for a moment, and Max, bold as brass, just hopped up on the bed next to Arya. Zephyr gasped. What did she do? She went still as a statue, but Max, he just laid his head in her lap and looked up at her with those soulful eyes. And Arya, she tentatively reached out and stroked his fur. Zephyr sat back, a thoughtful expression on his face. It's remarkable, isn't it? The bond that can form between two beings, regardless of species. Orin hummed in agreement. It is. Watching Arya with Max, it gave me hope, Zephyr. Hope that our peoples can find common ground, that we can learn from and understand each other. Zephyr nodded slowly, his mind whirling with the implications. This could change everything, Orin. If an Elysian child and a human dog can form such a deep connection, imagine what else is possible. Orin's eyes sparkled with the promise of a new future. I'm imagining it, my friend, and it's a beautiful thing. Zephyr leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. We have to share this story, Orin, with the council, with our people. They need to know. Orin's eyes sparkled with emotion as he continued his tale. As Arya prepared to leave the hospital, Richard had one more surprise up his sleeve. He presented her with a custom-made hover chair designed specifically for her Elysian physiology. Zephyr's antennae perked up with interest. A hover chair, how thoughtful, but how did he manage such a feat? Turns out Richard has a friend who's a brilliant engineer, Orin explained. Together they created a chair that would allow Arya to navigate Earth's terrain with ease, even while her wing healed. Fascinating, Zephyr mused. And the chair, what was it like? Orin's face lit up with a smile. Oh, Zephyr, it was a work of art. The chair was adorned with intricate designs inspired by our own Elysian aesthetics. Richard had clearly done his research, incorporating elements of our culture into the design. Impressive, Zephyr nodded. And the technology? State-of-the-art, Orin beamed. The chair featured advanced systems that seamlessly integrated with Arya's natural flying abilities. It was almost as if the chair was an extension of her own body. Zephyr shook his head in amazement. The level of care and consideration that must have gone into such a gift, it's truly remarkable. Indeed, Orin agreed. When Richard presented the chair to Arya, she was overwhelmed with emotion. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she hugged Richard and Max, expressing her gratitude for their kindness. Zephyr leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. You know, Orin, on Elysia, gift-giving is a sacred tradition. We reserve it for the deepest of friendships, the most profound connections. For Richard to have gone to such lengths for Arya, it speaks volumes about his character. Orin nodded solemnly. I couldn't agree more. Richard's gift wasn't just a gesture of care, but also a sign of respect. He took the time to understand our culture, our values, and incorporate them into his act of kindness. It's a level of cultural sensitivity that we don't often see from humans, Zephyr remarked. It gives me hope for the future of our relations. Orin's eyes shone with pride as he continued. As Arya left the hospital, Richard and Max accompanied her to the Elysian embassy. I had been in constant communication with Richard throughout the ordeal, and I couldn't wait to express my gratitude in person. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, Orin chuckled, but amidst the tears and embraces I made sure to pull Richard aside. I thanked him from the bottom of my heart for all that he had done for Arya, for our family. Zephyr leaned forward, his voice filled with curiosity. And what did you say to him? Orin's voice grew thick with emotion. I told him that he and Max would always be welcome on Elysia, that they were more than just friends, they were honorary members of our family. And then I invited them to visit our world as honored guests. Zephyr's eyes widened. A bold move, Orin, but a fitting one given the circumstances. Richard was touched by the offer, Orin smiled. He promised to take me up on the invitation someday, expressing his genuine desire to learn more about our culture and society. Zephyr sat back, a sense of hope blossoming in his chest. You know, Orin, as I listen to your story, I can't help but feel that this is a turning point for our peoples. Richard and Arya's friendship, the bond between a human and an Elysian, it's a model for what we could achieve together. Orin nodded, his eyes shining with the same hope. I couldn't agree more, my friend. If we can learn to understand and appreciate each other, to see beyond our differences, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. Zephyr leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face as he listened to Orin's account of the events that followed Arya's rescue. It's amazing How one act of kindness can ripple out and affect so many lives, he mused. Orin nodded, his eyes shining with pride. It truly is. The story of Arya and Richard spread like wildfire across Elysia. Our media, which had often focused on the more negative aspects of human society, began to shift their perspective. In what way? Zephyr asked, his antennae twitching with curiosity. They started highlighting the positive qualities of humans, like the bravery and compassion Richard showed. Stories of other humans performing acts of kindness and heroism began to surface, painting a more nuanced picture of their species. Zephyr's eyes widened. That's a significant change, and what about Arya? How did she handle the attention? Orin chuckled. She became quite the celebrity on Elysia. Everyone wanted to hear her story, to learn more about her experience with Richard and Max. She was invited to speak at schools, community centers, even government events. Incredible, Zephyr breathed. And she used that platform to promote a better understanding of humans. Exactly, Orin confirmed. Arya shared her story with anyone who would listen, emphasizing the kindness and compassion she had been shown. Her words had a profound impact on our people, challenging long-held stereotypes and prejudices. Zephyr leaned forward, his voice eager. Did this newfound understanding lead to any specific initiatives or programs? Orin's face lit up. As a matter of fact, it did. The Elysian government, in collaboration with the Human Embassy, launched a series of cultural exchange programs aimed at fostering greater cooperation between our species. Student exchanges, for one. Young Elysians and humans were given the opportunity to study on each other's worlds, immersing themselves in the language, customs, and daily life of their hosts. Zephyr's antennae quivered with excitement. What a fantastic idea! I bet those students learned a great deal. Orin smiled. They did, and it wasn't just students. Joint research projects were established, allowing Elysian and human scientists to collaborate on everything from medical advancements to space exploration. Amazing, Zephyr murmured. And you mentioned a Human-Elysian Friendship Day celebration? Orin's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Oh, it was a sight to behold. Performances, art exhibitions, food festivals, all showcasing the best of both our cultures. The streets were filled with laughter and joy as Elysians and humans came together to celebrate our newfound friendship. Zephyr shook his head in wonder. And to think just a few months ago such a scene would have been unimaginable. Indeed, Orin agreed. But the most heartwarming part, seeing Richard and Max there, being honored as symbols of the bond between our peoples. They were invited to participate in so many of the events, their presence a constant reminder of the power of compassion and understanding. Zephyr sat back, a smile playing on his lips. It's truly remarkable, Orin, to think that one human and his dog could have such a profound impact on our society. Orin nodded, his voice filled with emotion. It gives me hope, Zephyr. Hope for a future where Elysians and humans can live and work side by side, learning from each other and growing together. Zephyr's eyes shone with the same hope. And who knows what other positive changes might arise from this spirit of cooperation? The possibilities are endless. Orin leaned forward, his voice low and conspiratorial. You know, I heard a rumor that the Elysian Council is considering appointing an official ambassador to Earth, someone to represent our interests and foster even stronger ties between our worlds. Zephyr's antennae shot up in surprise. Really, that would be a monumental step forward in our relations. Orin nodded, a sly grin on his face. And guess who they're considering for the position? Zephyr's eyes widened as realization dawned. No, Richard! Zephyr shook his head in amazement. It's perfect. Richard's unique perspective and experiences would make him an ideal candidate for such a role. Orin leaned back, a contented sigh escaping his lips. Nothing's been decided yet, of course, but just the fact that it's being considered shows how far we've come. Zephyr nodded, his voice filled with awe. To think a human ambassador on Elysia, who would have believed it? Orin chuckled. Certainly not me, but then again I never would have believed that a human and his dog could change the course of history. And yet, here we are. Zephyr raised his glass, a toast to the future, to Richard and Max and to the boundless potential of friendship and understanding. Orin raised his own glass, the clink of crystal echoing through the room, to a brighter tomorrow, for Elysia, for Earth, and for all of us. Orin leaned forward, his eyes shining with excitement. But that's not all, Zephyr. Arya's experience and the cultural exchange programs that followed had a profound impact on her personal life as well. Zephyr's antenna twitched with curiosity. How so? Inspired by Richard's compassion and dedication to helping others, Arya decided to pursue a career in interspecies diplomacy, Orin explained. She wanted to use her unique perspective to bridge the gap between Elysians and humans. Zephyr's eyes widened. That's a noble pursuit, but it couldn't have been easy for her given the challenges involved. Orin nodded. True, but she had the full support of her family and the Elysian government. They recognized the potential of her vision and helped her enroll in a prestigious diplomacy program on Earth. On Earth, Zephyr gasped. She's the first Elysian student to do that, isn't she? Indeed, Orin confirmed, and Richard, who had become a close friend and mentor to Arya, was there every step of the way. He helped her navigate the challenges of living on a foreign planet, introducing her to his network of friends and colleagues who shared her passion for promoting interspecies understanding. Zephyr sat back, a look of admiration on his face. Arya's determination and vision are truly remarkable. I can only imagine the long-term impacts of her work. Orin smiled. I have no doubt that she will become a key figure in shaping the future of Elysian-human relations. And you know what? Her story has already inspired many other young Elysians to follow in her footsteps. Oh yes, Orin nodded. More and more students are expressing interest in studying and working on Earth. It's like Arya has sparked a movement of sorts. Zephyr chuckled. Who would have thought that a single incident could lead to such a profound change in our society? Orin's expression grew thoughtful. As Arya progressed through her studies, she began to develop a unique perspective on the similarities and differences between our cultures. She drew on her own experiences to propose innovative solutions to the challenges of interspecies cooperation. And people took notice? Zephyr asked. Absolutely, Orin confirmed. Her insights, which she shared through a series of widely read articles and speeches, began to attract the attention of leaders on both Elysia and Earth. They saw in her a potential bridge between our worlds. Zephyr leaned forward, his eyes sparkling with excitement. This is incredible, Orin. Arya's journey is a testament to the power of understanding and empathy. It gives me hope for the future of our relations with humans. Orin leaned back, a smile playing on his lips as he watched Zephyr's antennae twitch with interest. There's another remarkable development in Arya's story that I haven't shared yet, he began, his voice filled with pride. Oh, Zephyr prompted, his eyes widening. Do tell. Well, as you know, Arya spent a significant amount of time on Earth during her studies, and during that time she developed a deep bond with an unlikely friend, Richard's loyal German shepherd, Max. Zephyr's brow furrowed. A bond with an Earth animal? How is that possible? Orin chuckled. I know it sounds strange, but despite the initial language barrier, Arya and Max grew incredibly close. Max would often accompany her to classes and social events, providing a constant source of comfort and support. That's right, Orin confirmed. On Elysia, we don't have the same concept of animal companionship as humans do, but for Arya, Max's presence and unconditional love became a lifeline, especially during the more challenging moments of her studies. Zephyr nodded thoughtfully. I can see how that would be beneficial, but what happened next? Orin's eyes sparkled with excitement. Well, inspired by her friendship with Max, Arya began to research the role of animals in human society. She discovered the long history of domestication and the many ways in which animals have contributed to human well-being and development. One concept that particularly fascinated her was that of service animals, Orin explained. These are animals that are specifically trained to assist humans with disabilities or emotional needs. Zephyr's antennae twitched. That's remarkable. Do we have anything like that on Elysia? Orin shook his head. No, not really. While we have always respected and admired the natural world, we have never developed such close relationships with animals. I see, Zephyr mused, but Arya saw potential in this idea. Absolutely, Orin confirmed. She believed that introducing the concept of service animals to Elysian society could have significant benefits for our people. Well, with Richard's help, Arya began to develop a proposal for an Elysian service animal program. The idea was to pair specially trained animals with Elysians in need of emotional or physical support. That's a bold idea, Zephyr remarked. How did she propose to make it work? Orin leaned forward, his voice filled with enthusiasm. The proposal outlined the potential benefits and challenges of such a program. It suggested starting with a pilot project, selecting a few Elysians who could benefit from animal companionship and support. And the animals, Zephyr asked. Where would they come from? Arya proposed partnering with Earth animal shelters and training programs, Orin explained. She believed that this could not only provide Elysians with the support they needed, but also help to find homes for Earth animals in need. Zephyr nodded slowly, his mind whirling with the possibilities. That's a brilliant idea, and how was the proposal received? Orin's smile broadened. It quickly gained traction among Elysian leaders. They saw it as a way to not only improve the lives of our citizens, but also to deepen our understanding of and connection to the natural world. Incredible, Zephyr breathed. Arya's vision and compassion continue to astound me. Orin nodded, his chest swelling with pride. She truly is an extraordinary individual. And to think it all started with a chance encounter and a loyal dog named Max. Orin's antennae drooped as he shared the next part of the story with Zephyr. Just as Arya's service animal proposal was gaining traction, we received devastating news. Richard, who had become Arya's closest human friend and mentor, was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Zephyr's eyes widened in shock. No, how could this happen? Orin shook his head, his voice heavy with sorrow. Despite the best efforts of both human doctors and our own Elysian healers, Richard's condition deteriorated rapidly. They gave him only a few months to live. How did Arya take the news? Zephyr asked, his heart aching for the young Elysian. She was shattered, Orin replied. But she didn't let her grief consume her. Instead, she spent every moment she could with Richard, offering him the same comfort and support he had once given her. Zephyr leaned forward, his antennae twitching with curiosity. What did they talk about in those final days? Orin's eyes took on a distant look as he recalled Arya's words. Richard shared his hopes and fears for the future. He told Arya that he believed her work would be instrumental in building a lasting peace between our species. It was his final wish to see our peoples united. A noble dream, Zephyr murmured, his respect for the human growing. Orin nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. And through it all, Max never left Richard's side. That loyal dog was a constant source of comfort and companionship, even in the darkest of times. The bond between a human and their dog is truly remarkable, Zephyr mused. Witnessing that unbreakable connection only strengthened Arya's resolve, Orin continued. She became more determined than ever to bring the concept of service animals to Elysia, seeing it as a way to honor Richard's legacy. Zephyr's eyes glistened with unshed tears. What were Richard's final days like? Orin's voice trembled as he spoke. Richard passed away peacefully in his sleep, with Arya and Max by his side. It was a profound loss, not just for Arya, but for all of us who had come to know and admire him. Zephyr reached out, placing a comforting hand on Orin's shoulder. His memory will live on through the lives he touched and the change he inspired. Orin nodded, taking a moment to compose himself. The Elysian government recognized Richard's extraordinary contributions to interspecies understanding. they posthumously awarded him with our highest civilian honor, the Starburst of Harmony. Arya, though devastated by the loss of her friend, found solace in the knowledge that his memory would endure through her work and the countless lives he had touched, Orin continued. In the years that followed, her service animal program became a reality, bringing comfort and support to countless Elysians and deepening our appreciation for the natural world. Zephyr smiled, his heart swelling with pride. And what of Max? Max lived out his days on Elysia, cherished as a hero and a symbol of the power of interspecies friendship, Orin replied. He remained a faithful companion to Arya, offering her the same unwavering love and support he had once given Richard. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.